Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Good afternoon. My name is Alex Sani. I'm the Industry Development Coordinator here at Manitoba Music, and this is our MFM Music Recording Grant Info Session presented by MusicWorks. I would like to recognize that Manitoba Music was founded on Treaty 1 territory, which is the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. And I'd like to recognize the strong Inuit community here in Manitoba. Manitoba Music respects the treaty in which our organization resides, and we commit to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in the spirit of collaboration and reconciliation. We all know that funding can be a key element to building a music career and growing your business. And today we have none other than Manitoba Film and Music's Director of Music Programs, Stephen Carroll. And in today's info session, Stephen's going to give us a quick look at some of MFM's funding programs and share some tips for making a successful application, as well as some updates to some of their programming, some changes that they've made. We're all doing this obviously because there's currently a grant incubator for the IMDP program, and we have a MusicWorks kind of refresher grant course that incubator. It's a little bit different. We're trying something new, and obviously that deadline to make sure you get that in, that's April 21st. So in a couple of days from now at 4 p.m. So you check out our website and you can apply for that. But like I said, we have Stephen Carroll today. He's here and he's going to help walk us through everything that we need to know in order to make the most out of our grant application situation. So Stephen, there you are. Wonderful to have you back. Magic of technology. We're super excited to have you, and yeah, take it away.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks everybody at Manitoba Music who's working on this in the background. Appreciate it. Yeah, so it's that time of year. We are getting ready for our first deadline of the new fiscal. Our fiscal year runs April 1 to March 31. And yeah, with that change in fiscal, we have a fresh set of recording deadline dates, and we have some program updates and some maybe application form changes. So a few things that we've worked on over the last months to bring to you. So today's presentation, I'll touch upon just a few changes. There's not too many this year right away. And we'll look at the new application form. We'll look at our new budget template, and we're going to go through the recording program in detail. So I have a little PowerPoint to show you here. And as always, we have lots of information on our website. And I maybe should mention I'm the Director of Music Programs, as Alex had said, and I've been in the job for almost 8 years in August. Working with my colleague Bonnie, we are the music department, and we handle your applications, and we're always open for questions and happy to get on a call and look at applications in draft format if you want us to review documents in advance of them being officially submitted. So without further ado, I'll start with our little PowerPoint here. It'll probably go 35 minutes. And welcome to receive questions. If Alex, you want to pop back in with questions later, we can. Or if anybody wants to throw a question at us on socials, I think we can catch those as well. So I'm just going to share my screen and start a PowerPoint. So be right with you. Okay. I'm hoping that you guys can see the PowerPoint. Alex, let me know if you don't see the PowerPoint. Otherwise, I'm just going to start. So this is our the annual overview of our program changes and program update. So just a little background on Manitoba Film Music for those who don't know. We were established in 1986, and we've been funding music in all sorts of ways ever since then. We also have a film department which handles the tax credit at film investment and as well as programs. I don't handle that department. And through the music department, we fund tours, online concerts, marketing, video recording, and we have a business development program. And this fund is open to all members of the Manitoba music industry. So we receive applications from generally artists, but there's also a business development program that's open to businesses. And studios and producers are welcome to apply to the recording program to bring in artists from anywhere in the world to record here. So we've got a slate of programs trying to covering all the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day music business. These are the main programs we have on offer. Just for those who don't know, we have a tour program. It's an annual maximum of $15,000. We never give out that much in one grant, though, or rarely do. So be mindful of that when making applications. Online concerts we fund to an annual max of $5,100, and that gets distributed by maximum grant of $1,700 per online concert. Marketing, we have marketing support available, which funds everything you can imagine to promote your release. So if you're coming into the recording program, this is a good companion program to, fund the other initiatives that you need to have in place, such as a marketing team, website development, paid advertising through social media, radio teams, digital marketers, as well as some content development. We also have a video program, which is a maximum award of $10,000 per year. And we award, there's two tiers to that program, $1,500 level and for open to all Manitoba artists. And then a $5,000 level open to only those who have received recording funding from us previously. Just going to check my chat. Okay, everything's good, says Alex. Right on. Then business development, we have two tiers. So we have a $3,000 level that's open to a wide slate of music business persons and companies, such as live music presenters, labels, managers, publishers, all based in Manitoba, and the $15,000 tier, which is open just to labels, managers, and publishers working here in Manitoba. And finally, the recording program, which I'll go into in detail. So I kind of breezed through those. We're not going to go into those programs in that much detail because we're going to focus on the recording program, but please reach out. If you're planning a tour, think of making an application to us. These are tour, online concert, marketing, video, are all rolling deadlines. So they're open all year while we have funds. You just got to apply before your initiative starts or expenses are incurred that you want us to cover. So again, rolling deadlines on those, but for the business development, it's a fixed deadline. This year it's in June 16th, I think. Then recording, we're going to go discuss all those deadlines in the next couple slides here. Okay. So these are the updates to the programs this year. We're just going to talk about these briefly. So recording, we made one change, which is maybe a subtle, but a big change. We're now accepting applications for projects that are at the mixing stage. So previously, for an application to be eligible, Manitoba Film Music would need to be investing in the actual recording, okay, the tracking of the project. But now we have opened it up so that projects that have already recorded but are looking for mixing, mastering, manufacturing, if you're doing that, but album completion costs can come in. Okay, and so the same rules apply that we'll discuss later about that. We've ended the pre-production program, which was a tier which we put in place to support artists during the lockdown periods of COVID. That has been discontinued. We have rebranded the accredited studios as accredited recording services. So this is to account for that we're capturing a broader range of types of businesses than just studios with the accreditation process. For those who don't know, accreditation is is a requirement for the recording program that the facility or person you're working with is accredited by Manitoba Film Music. And I'll talk briefly about that as we go through here, but if anybody is a studio or a producer, mixer engineer that's interested in becoming accredited, there's a link on our website. It's a very easy form. We look at your track record, make sure you're a Manitoba-based individual and have a Manitoba registered business and have a track record of recording and some training. And then we ask for a gear list. And also we will require you to send in a demo reel, which can be just links to some tracks that you've produced. And finally, across all programs, actually, we've updated our budget templates. So they're now Excel sheets, which are formatted with all the math in there. So we've taken on the hard work. So you have to just put in your expenses and it should add all up. We encourage you to use those. And we've also subsequently updated all the application forms. They should all be a fillable PDF for you, which hopefully will make it a little bit easier. The other program that received a substantial change was the video program. So we used to actually have an internal cap on the number of viral videos for that MFM would fund in a year for non-MFM funded recordings. So that was a limit of 10 across our budget, but we've removed that. So we're open to receive more and fund more applications for persons who didn't receive recording funding at the $1,500 tier. We've reduced the window of time for the video program in which you can apply with an eligible release. We've reduced it from 2 years to 1 year. So principal year after release is usually the time when funding is most critical for music video production. So you have 1 year starting with the release of the first single to come in for the $10,000 in music video funding. Again, for this program, we've updated the budget template and application forms, and please use those new forms because we're no longer accepting applications using the old forms or the old budgets. Why? Because it does the math for you, and it's way better for me too, so I don't have to go and check your math, or Bonnie doesn't have to fix it. Okay, so today is a topic of discussion, the recording program. This is a jury program that has 3 deadlines a year. So the next deadline is May 19th at 5 p.m. Applications are received by email. They can be submitted to music@mbfilmmusic.ca. I'll reiterate that later. It's all in the application form, which we're about to look at. Then we have 2 other subsequent deadlines coming up. It's the 15th and the 9th of September and the 19th of January. Again, those are all 5 p.m. deadlines, so applications got to be emailed in with a link to your Google Drive or Dropbox only. Those are the 2 formats we accept, and it has to be sent before 5 p.m. Literally, we'll look at the timestamp. If it's later, it's 5:01, we can't accept it. We're pretty strict about that. I know it's no fun. So before we get too far into this program, I thought we should look at the application form, because for folks who have not seen the application form, it's always good to get sort of a guided tour. And those for folks who have filled it out before, I want to talk about what's kind of key and what little pieces to put in there to make sure that you have a better luck with your juries. So with that, I'm going to start. I'm going to do a little bit of bouncing between screens. So just bear with me for a second here while I'm going to share a different screen. So it's just going to take me a quick sec. I'm just going to open up another link here. Give me one more sec. I've got my myself in a bit of a tizzy here trying to find this. Oh, I see what I need to do. Stand by. Made myself a very awkward job here. There we go. Okay, there we go. So that's the application form. This is page 1. So on page 1 is a checklist. All our application forms have the same template, and they kind of ask for the same things. But it shows you the list of things you're going to need. Key item to remember, so you're going to need to have a registered business. But if you don't have a registered business, you can get one at the company's office. It's something like $100 or so. You can do it online, the Manitoba company's office. And you can register your company. We want you to be in a business. We are in the business, the music business, that is. Sorry, dog's going to bark a bit. And the application takes a bit to get, so you have to do it in advance. Now, you can apply without the registration in place. Just let us know that it's to follow, and it has to be in place for us to write a contract. So you can apply without it, but you need it if you get approved, for us to give you money. Finally, you'll need to also give your budget, your artist biography, a marketing plan, demos, there's material that has to be submitted. So for level 1, it's 1 to 2 songs. Depending if you're doing a full-length recording, it's 2. If it's single, you only submit 1. Level 2 and 3, it's got to be 3 songs. And these are these are demos that you've made, rough demos. Here, I'll mention this later, but you pay attention to the performance, everything hitting right, everybody playing in time, vocals on key, that kind of thing. And they must be an MP3 or WAV file. Just keep that in mind. Don't send us video files of your songs, which happens now and then, and it makes it really hard for us. If we can't play the song, we can't present it to the jury, and your application is ineligible. So lyrics got to be submitted. Song treatments. Song treatments are just really a summary of what you're going to do in the studio. It can be just a paragraph on each, how you're going to flesh out the recording, what arrangements you might do differently. It's a place for you to really get a moment to convince the jury that you're going to expand the song somehow sonically in the studio and present your artistic vision of the recording itself. And you can work with your producer on creating those. That's always a good idea. The juries sometimes actually look at those and go, "Oh, I wanted to see more in the song treatment." So, though they're a small piece, don't dissuade their impact on the jury. You'll have to include the resumes of the production staff. So just this little CV. We don't want pages and pages of credentials. Just the basic who they are, what they've done, a little bit about each person working on that project. So you can include some promotional material as well. So that could be a couple of press quotes is what I like to say is sufficient. You can include press quotes with links to articles now, because the juries do receive the documents digitally and they can go and check out those articles. But generally, you don't want to bury the jury in too much information. So just a page of great press quotes that you've had, that's great. Or links to some articles is good, but do put some context around any links you put in there. Don't just put a link, because the jury will want to understand what they're seeing, because they're going through a lot of information. So you want to make it as easy for them as possible. Finally, proof of sales for level 3. That is, if you're a level 3 artist, you got to have sold a minimum of 750 units or 1.2 million streams or so of your previous release. Finally, we do encourage applicants to go for other funding from Factor generally. And that is just, it used to be mandatory, but it's just encouraged now. So if you are doing that, put that in your application that you've applied, because it does look better. And if you've received the funding already from another public funder for the music industry, then do definitely include that. So page 2 of this is really about you. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here. It's pretty self-explanatory: who you are, where you live, communication authorization. That's for grant writers or managers or labels to fill out. And it's third party that you want us to be able to correspond with regarding the grant. Here's where you put in the information of who's participating in the project. Please do fill this out, and it's voluntary to fill out the cultural information, but there is scoring that encourages diversity in our jury sheets. So we encourage you to do fill this section out. Finally, there's a page here on social media. So do fill that out as well. We'd like to know that data. Just so you know, the jury see a redacted version of this. They don't see the whole application form. The jury will only see part 2 here, which is the production information. We take everything else out, the private information regarding your contact information, your address, and the employment information. But this page 2, we put into the package that goes to the juries. So definitely need to fill everything out here. If you have a previous release, please put the information in here. So this is one of those things that if you've written a grant before and you were unsuccessful, make sure that you put your track record of sales and streams in here and go track down that information. Because if this is blank and you do have an album title in here, make sure you oh, I got bounced out, but I think I'm back in. Here we go. Very good. Everything okay out there, Alex and team? Okay. Well, production staff. So here, definitely fill this section out. If you're self-producing, just put self in there. If you don't have a manager, you can just put yourself managed, et cetera, et cetera. Those kind of things. This is where you can reinforce to the jury your team members. If you put this information in your application form already, then good, Alex telling me I'm back. Then it's good to reinforce it here. It's okay to duplicate the information, but don't leave it blank. Okay, if you take anything away from this talk when you're doing your application form, make sure you fill this out correctly. And then your production schedule. So very simple: the dates of when you start, when you stop in recording, and when it's going to be released. Or if it's a demo and it's not being released, put in the completion date of your demo project. Then information on the songs. Okay, so just who wrote the songs that are on the demos. Okay, these are related to the demos that you're submitting to the jurors. And then part 4 here, this is regarding other additional funding. So if you have applied for other funding, you can put that in there. Again, the jury's not seeing this page. The bulk of this page is actually a cheat sheet on writing a marketing plan. People often ask us, what should they put in the marketing plan? And we often say it's all listed on page 6 of the application form. You can just follow this. You can basically use a template. But you want to use these as headers. Don't make them questions. You can use each of these as a header. I'm going to go through what I think is a good format shortly, but this gives you a basic sense of what to do. And then the budget I'm going to go to next, but lastly, you're just going to sign it. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to go see if I can pull off sharing the budget. So bear with me here. Okay, let's see how I'm doing here. And my screen share. Great. So somewhere over here, I have a budget. Okay. Let's go back to the screen shares. There we go. So this is the new budget template. You'll put your artist name in up top, application date that you're submitting, and then you put in essentially all the information of the recording. Your studio costs, the rate, and this little the spreadsheet will do all the calculations for you. Your engineer, your producer information. This gives you a sense of if it's your first time doing this, what expenses are eligible. Really, all expenses related to the recording are eligible generally. And if you see it on this budget, likely you can claim it as a cost of the grant. So artist fees, we expect you to put artist fees in for yourself, and all this adds up. It should give you the math. If you're donating any of your costs, you put that in here, and that gets reduced from whatever cash total you have. So if you claimed you were working in the studio for 5 days, and that was one musician, and you wanted to donate $1,000, that fee, that'll get reduced. So you end up with donated amount. And donated is an item we put in all of the programs where it was relevant. Essentially an artist-friendly budget line item, which account for the fact that artists are often find people to do things on the cheap or volunteer. So like if you get a photographer and they are working on the project and normally charge you $300 for a shoot, but they end up shooting your cover artwork for $200, you can claim that $100 difference as long as they put it on an invoice. Anyways, you can scroll down here, and there's lots of other, all the costs get summarized in here, and all the math will be done for you now, and it will give you your final total. So here I had only claim manufacturing, which doesn't make any sense. But so it looks like there's some budget items in here I need to take out. There we go. But yeah, so it should do all of this math for you, and finally give you your final totals. It'll calculate the admin fee, which I'll talk about shortly, which are also baked into our grants. We expect it to be there. It's a 15% on top admin fee, which you guys are allowed to claim. It's there to represent the fact that there's a cost that goes into writing these grants. So that's my little tour of the new budget. So that budget template, it's good to get familiar with it. It's used across all the programs now. And I'm going to go back to my slideshow, hopefully. Okay, thanks for bearing with me. I found it really tricky to put all this stuff into the spreadsheet. So we're going to go from current slide. Okay, so I'm just going to go zip over to where we were before. So yeah, there's a quick intro of the recording program. So let's get into a bit more details. So as we know, we're talking about the budget. So expenses are eligible essentially for most items that are related to the recording, and will allow you to incur expenses up to 30 days in advance of the application being officially received. Okay, so what does that mean? That means if you want to apply to Manitoba Film Music, you can apply anytime in advance of the date of the deadline. So let's say you wanted to start recording tomorrow on the 20th. You could have, or sorry, you want to incur expenses prior to submitting the application. You could, or claim expenses that you submitted prior to the application coming in. It means if you submit the application on the 20th, you have 30 days prior to that date to have incurred expenses. So expenses would have been eligible starting March 20th. So you could, in a sense, have started recording or mixing on March 20th and then drop off an application tomorrow, and all that project would still be eligible. It takes you a minute to get your head around, but it allows you to have a little more flexibility. It allows for, the fact that maybe, you were late getting information from your producer and you couldn't get the application in time prior to you starting recording. So you dropped it off a couple of days into the tracking session. But it always has to be in, whatever happens, you have to be in before the deadline. So keep that in mind. Not-for-profits can come in. So we do allow, major companies that are not-for-profits come in. Recording program used to be a loan program, but they're all grants now. So every investment we make in the recording program is a grant. In those who had past loans, recoupment is forgiven if you're up to date on your reports up until the date of March 31, 2020, which I think is most people now. So well done, everybody. So the levels. I'm going to go through these levels and eat one at a time. So level 1 demo, it's an entry-level program. It's open to artists who are just starting their career, but it's also open to folks who have established themselves and want to get into the studio. It's there to provide funding to go into the studio, work with the producer for the first time, flush out arrangements, fine-tune session, just get a sense of what the tracks sounded like with the arrangement that you had in your mind. That it's there for that kind of early process in song creation. And we're investing up to $2,000, and we'll come in at 100% of the budget right now, which was something we put in place for COVID, and we're keeping in place for this fiscal. So you can work, we had made some adjustments to the rules for COVID, so you can do home recordings, but as long as you're working in partnership with an accredited local recording studio or accredited recording service nowadays. Level 1 has a commercial release stream. So level 1 commercial release is where the artist is actually going to be releasing the material. The difference is really the intent. Level 1 demo, you're going to be submitting a plan that's a proposal to work in the studio. You're going to express why it's a priority that you receive the funding and how that demo will be used to further your career, but won't be released. So maybe it's, for shopping for a record deal, for presenting to promoters, for some live gigs. But the commercial release, you're going to come in with a marketing plan. So you're actually going to be releasing it. And it's an award of up to $3,000, whichever is for less. And both of these, you can do them affiliated with a accredited local service. So it's a producer studio. You can partner with them on this. Generally, where most people are, working with an accredited studio um, to do these projects. We'll come in at 100% of the applicant's budget. Again, it's a COVID program change we put in place. So here, you definitely want to be thinking about how you're going to be releasing this and using that as and what your master plan is for your album cycle or your single cycle, what you're going to be doing to promote it. And you're going to try and lay that out for the jury, and that'll all come out in your marketing plan, which we're going to go over in a minute. So level 2 is up to $10,000, which would be 75% of the budget. This one's unlike level 1, which is more entry level. This one is for artists who've begun to establish themselves and are more professional in their ambition. So this is for somebody who's perhaps toured regionally to nationally or internationally and has some previous track record in place. So slightly more challenging grant to get. And we expect at level 2 that there be at least one external team member in place, whereas level 1, we don't expect that the external team members are there, but though, we'd hope that in your proposal you lay out an understanding of the various tasks that are involved in doing a release, and you express those clearly to the jury. And the top tier is level 3. So that's up to 20 grand. And that is for artists who are really more established. They have probably 3 to 4 of the big 5 team members in place: agent, manager, label, publisher, publicist, they're kind of set up. And they also have sold 750 units or have the 1.2 million streams of their past release. So those two are the harder ones to get. Level 1 is really wide open. And if it's your first time applying to Manitoba Film and Music and you haven't, you're just releasing music, just getting going in your career, really look at the level 1. That's the one for you. Though, it used to be that you could only get 1 to 4 songs funded from us for this level. We got rid of that. So you can come in for a full album. Well, we're not going to come in that much, but it is something. Often I say come in for a single. That's a good strategy. So if you've been declined previously, like if you're looking at the grant refresher as a way to maybe, fine tune your writing and get better luck with the juries, this is, make sure you are applying for the right level, because we see people that are just, they haven't released anything ever. There's no track record of performance, and they're trying to come in for the level 2, and it just doesn't work because you're competing in a lot of ways with people who are touring nationally, internationally, when you come in for the level 2. With here, if you've only been performing regionally or locally, that's okay. But always, level 1, you still don't want to you want to make a great case for your release campaign. You want to have a fulsome idea of what you're doing, and you don't make your release campaign too narrow. If something's just Winnipeg based for your release campaign, it's too narrow, even for level 1. We want to see people, we want to support professional musicians with professional ambitions. So that's a little, touch point on the program levels. You can always call us so we can talk about where you're at. We talk about your career, and we can advise you on what level we think is best. Okay, so I'm going to go into a bit of the guidelines now, just quickly. There's a lot of little rules. Generally, though, most people won't only deal with a couple. One is that you got to be a resident of Manitoba. You got to have a registered business, which I mentioned earlier. You got to have a bank account under your business name, because we need to write a check to you. And we write a check to only businesses from our organization. So you have to have a related business account to deposit that money. That doesn't need to be in place at the time of application. It can come later. Don't sweat it if you don't have one. It only comes into play once we start writing checks, and that means you've gotten funded and things are going pretty well. So we also, as we mentioned, encourage you to apply to Factor or Music Action or StarMaker. So Factor, just so everybody knows, this is the top level, or one of the bigger funding agencies in Canada. It's a national funding body for the music industry. So and they have similar programs to us. Probably the program to think about if you're a level 1 artist is to look at the artist development program. They have 2 deadlines a year, and it's the maximum award of $2,000. And if you're Francophone, you'd be applying to Music Action, similar national organization. And then StarMaker is the top level. They don't fund recordings, but they fund marketing and tour. Um, so, as I mentioned in the budget, we have this is a page on just eligible expenses. So, donated costs are eligible, and they're capped at 25% of your final expenses. Okay, that's a little weird when not looking at it on a piece of paper, but trust me, you can play with our budget template. It'll do all the math for you. It'll fix any errors, and it'll govern your budget according to these basic rules. So it's like I mentioned, if you have a friend who's working on the project for free, perhaps they're donating their musician's fee. They've come in to play horns on your track, and they decided they're not going to ask you for any money. And you can say, okay, well, can you please sign my artist's invoice, and we'll claim your fee as donated. And you can claim up to 300 of that as a fee, and then you can claim that whole thing as donated. And the whole formula is all the math will get worked out in our budget template. As I mentioned, there's an admin fee which can be claimed, and that's baked into our grants. In fact, the budget template will just calculate it automatically. Don't worry about it's in there. It just allows you to push up your budget a little bit and to account for that expense of writing the grant and the time that goes into it that is not otherwise counted. They're standard in most grants. Okay, so when you're paying for things, though, we don't like cash. We prefer you pay digitally somehow or write a check. Something that can be tracked, because we're gonna do a spot audit on the costs. You have to file a cost report with a list of all your expenses, and we do a spot audit on those expenses where we'll ask for the invoices and the proofs of payment. So when you pay cash, you do have a cap of $150 per invoice. It does happen that some people pay in cash and it gets into a bit of a problem, and they have to go back and reissue the payments, and it's a bit of drama, which is unnecessary. So pay digitally so you have a nice transaction track record. It's better for everybody. So again, that window for recording is that you can come in for 30 days. Sorry, that was a bad way to start that sentence. We have a window where 30 days in advance of the application you received, you can claim expenses back. So you could start recording 15 days ago and drop off an app stay, and all those recording expenses would be eligible. Okay, so some flexibility there. So it's a jury program. So I'm just going to talk about the jury. So the jury it's composed of, each jury is composed of 3 persons, and you have to get through 2 different juries to get approved. So it's pretty tricky. You have to convince 6 people to vote basically unanimously in favor of you. Each application gets reviewed independently, and the jurors vote in favor of approving the app or declining it after a short discussion and after reviewing the application. So you go through 1 jury to get to the second jury, and the second jury, the final jury, has the same process. They're only reviewing about 14 or 15 applications of the 40 to 50 that we'll get. So they're broken off into about 3 pools. And with the pools of jurors, we'll see applications in which they have genre expertise. So we're putting your music in front of people who know the music and are passionate about that genre and can speak to it with some authority. And they're peers from the music industry here. And we don't disclose who the jurors are. But if you're interested in participating in our juries, please reach out. We always need new jurors. You can just reach out to me, and my email's coming up. So yeah, you really have to make a good case. And, usually it's about, our decline rate's about 30% get through or so. So it's not too bad. But I really, encourage you, if you've been declined previously, to use that experience to refine your application and submit a new one, because everybody gets generally declined the first time. Even I did. Okay, so my first app, I remember I got my jury notes back, and I say this all the time. They told me, it was via email, that there were no hooks. So, I don't know. I went on to have a great career in the music business and toured the world. So I didn't let that dissuade me, and later on got grants when I needed them. So what does that jury want to hear? They want to hear good, interesting songs that are reasonably well recorded, sung in key with instruments that are in tune, and also played in tempo. Or if it's, if you're making your beat and that's not too messy, make sure everything's tight. They really will be listening to the quality of the performance, like the fidelity of the recording doesn't matter, but make sure that the vocals are the best performance that you've had, and the performance of everybody. everybody's playing in time and all those basics are in place. And then it's somewhat audible. Like we've heard some stuff that's pretty noisy and it's very hard to tell what's happening. If you want to gut check this, play the demos for your friends and ask them what they think. Okay. Because that's really what we're talking about. You want to make sure that, people can understand the music that you're presenting. So the marketing plan, it's very important to have a good marketing plan. So the juror is really fixated on the marketing plan and the project plan for the demo. So you want to present it professionally. And you want to try to make the case for funding. That's what really the marketing plan is. It's your pitch to the jury. So in general, this is the format that I recommend for writing a marketing plan. It's very clean, start with your project overview, shortly state in one paragraph where you're recording, how it fits in the timeline of your career, who's involved, and when it will be released, if it's being released. One paragraph, you can tell the jury basically everything that all the application form already is, maybe reiterated, but here you reinforce it. You include your bio here. We don't want the bios to be super, super long. And then recording plan, what studio, the dates, all that stuff, put that in there. Team, who's working with you on the album. Make it a little list. You have it already maybe in the application form, but reinforce it here. If you want to include just short lines about them here, you can. That's fine. Who the team members are, what the scope of work they'll be doing, and then the release plan and bullets. So what are you going to do to support the release? The dates, video details, and I would suggest for each of these items, like video, social media, make them a header and just fill out underneath that. It doesn't have to be epic. We're not asking for an encyclopedia here. You probably want this to be no more than 10 pages. People tend to write too much and lose the jury and bury them with information. So it's pertinent to just keep it succinct, but give them the facts, And if there's things that are missing, you can say that you want to be building them and fixing them, etc. That's okay. Just make sure it's addressed. Like maybe you don't have a website yet, but say you're building it on here are the people that are building it. That can help. Don't just say, I will be building a website for myself. That's just too vague. It's much more pertinent or powerful to say, I'm going to be building a website and here is the person who's going to be building it. And we're going to launch it on this day around the album release, something like that. So it's a chance for you to really lay out your idea. And I know it's kind of annoying to write these. And I, had to write a lot of these because I was an artist manager. But they're very useful exercise, unfortunately. They really are a place for you just to sort of lay down and think about how you're going to market your album. Because, successful records are successfully marketed. They have generally a long trajectory of dates and key dates in advance of the actual tracks coming out where things are going to be released. And I know it can be overwhelming laying all this stuff out, but it can be useful for you just as a little bit of guide. For you to plan out the release of the record. So then I also recommend on that note, just have a timeline. Release in chronological list when you're releasing each item, when the first single, or even all the stuff in advance, the album teasers, whatnot, social media posts. It doesn't have to be super detailed. Just as, make sure that if you have thought this through, lay it out for the jury. But use a kind of format like this. And then finally, tour. So what live dates you're doing. If you're not touring yet, just mention what you would do hypothetically in the future, because we know that touring is still somewhat precarious venture. Happy to look over your applications in draft format when you guys get them done. Just send them on over to Bonnie and myself, and we'll give them a quick scan and let you know if they could be improved. Also, you can connect with Alex of Manitoba Music. He knows this stuff. His project, The Lytics, got a lot of funding from us, so he's a wizard on this stuff too. We're coming to the end of my presentation here, so if there's any questions, you can probably drop them in the chat, or maybe Alex, let me know. This is, our deadlines for the year. Email the applications in before 5 p.m. is right there. And that's it on this edition of our first program presentation of this fiscal. Thanks very much for tuning in and spending your lunch hour with us, or maybe you're watching it in replay. Again, you can hit us up at these emails anytime you want. Happy to get on a call and talk about your application, what levels are suitable, and give you some more specific tips on navigating the programs. And so I'm going to end the presentation.
Perfect, Stephen. That was great. Obviously, lots of really good information. And I really hope that anybody who's interested would take Stephen up on that, either reaching out to them directly or myself. As you said, I'd be happy to help you out with that. And again, a reminder, Manitoba Music is doing a grant refresher course, and the deadline for that is in a couple of days at 4 p.m. on the 21st. So make sure you apply. If you have previously applied and you didn't quite get it, you were close, but it didn't quite go there. This is exactly what we're doing. Normally we do grant incubator. This is a little bit of a take on it. We're actually specifically looking for people who have come really close and not quite made it. And we're going to try and see if we can turn that around. So we're going to use a lot of the information that Stephen has given us that. We're going to pair you with some mentors, and they're going to take a deep dive and see if we can retool and tweak some of the things to make sure that you're successful this time. Thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us. Thank you again to Stephen Carroll for walking us through that. And yeah, some great changes we've learned, great opportunities, and we're all happy to help you out. And hopefully we can see some really good success and some great music coming out of this province. I know some really talented people, and I'm really happy to see what you guys come up with. Anyways, thank you very much. Again, MFM, Stephen Carroll. I'm Alex Sani over here at Manitoba Music, and you guys have a great rest of your day. See you.